Good morning, everyone. First, let me start by introducing you and welcoming you to the New York City PBA. Standing with me is John McLaughlin from McLaughlin Associates, and we have associates actually doing the work over in the corner, and we welcome you as well. And standing with me are the members of the PBA Executive Board, who represent every borough and every police officer in the rank and file and the rank of police officer across this great city. We're here to announce the results of a survey we've done, an online survey within our members, the rank and file New York City police officers. One of the questions you may well have, and I've been asked, is, why do a survey of our members? We go out on a regular basis, whether it's out to the precincts to turn out the roll calls, as we say, or we're out in the street speaking with our members or our delegate body. And we hear what they're saying, and we have a pulse for the members and what they think on the street. But what we wanted to do is scientifically go back and see if they'll say the same thing while we're speaking to them one-on-one as they would when they're sitting in the privacy of their own kitchen. And what we found is that they did. But with this, we can say it's a scientific poll. When we put this out to our members, the only instructions we gave them was to answer it honestly, and they did just that. We opened this up to all our members. Again, just answer it honestly, and 6,000 of our members participated. And what we found out is morale is at an all-time low. Now, we oftentimes talk about the morale of New York City police officers. That's the business we're in as a union. But what we've found is that it was on a steady decline, and we're now at rock bottom. Police officers go out and do their job, and we're proud to do our job. We go out and chase criminals. We stand at the bedside of elderly and children who are sick. We serve the public. We police rallies. Sometimes we police those rallies. We don't particularly agree with what's being said, but nonetheless, we police it professionally. That's our job, and we're proud to do it. There's a number of serious problems that lead to the morale being so low in the NYPD, especially in the rank of New York City police officers. There's a number of outstanding, serious issues that we've been dealing with for some time. The outstanding pay cap. We're the lowest paid police department in the country, although we're praised for being the most professional, the best at what we do, and the moniker of New York's finest is true, but nonetheless, they can't find their way to pay us like professional police officers. A disability if our police officers, especially our newer members, go out on the street and get disabled. A disability that will not allow them to take care of their family for the service that they've given us. Understaffing. And I know you folks live out in the neighborhoods of our city. Understaffing to a point where it's taking some time, and we've seen our response times get worse and worse. You dial 911, you want your police officer in the sector, as we call it, in your neighborhood to respond as quickly as possible. Because of the staffing, the understaffing, it takes some time to do that, and that's been acknowledged. As we see crime rising, City Hall decided it's time to hire police officers. But the danger in policing is you cannot fix it overnight. If you let the staffing drop too low and crime is rising and gets out of control, you can't hire, recruit, and train qualified police officers overnight. It takes well over a year to do just that. So it's a dangerous road that we're on. Our police officers don't feel like they're equipped properly to go out and do the job. Now remember, we're not just doing traditional crime, going after the bad guys who prey on your neighborhoods and may rob you on the way to church. We're also talking about the real threat of terrorism. And how we're taught is to immediately go into that situation when called and neutralize the threat, meaning stop that person with a gun, tackle that person that may have a bomb. But the first responders of first responders, the local New York City police officer in your neighborhood by your home, is ill-equipped. While we may be going up against terrorists with automatic weapons, we're walking in with a 9mm on our hip. And it takes time to get those highly trained specialists to respond quickly. What we say is train us and equip us to protect you and protect ourselves. Every police officer, not just specialties. What this is today in this survey and what our members hope to accomplish is not finger pointing to say, there's a problem, it's your fault. What we want to do here today is say, here's what our members are thinking, here's how they feel unsupported in the NYPD. It's getting more dangerous on the streets. It's more likely people resist arrest in situations with police officers. So what we're saying is, City Hall, this is how our members feel, and it's real. This is an opportunity for us to solve the problem. We've always been and stand ready to solve these problems. Not Band-Aid approaches. Solve them and solve them consistently on into the future. What I want to do now is have John McLaughlin come up and go over some of the findings in this survey to talk about the methodology, how it was done, because we think that's awful important, because this survey wasn't just done in the basement of the PBA with a bunch of us with pencils. It was from our members. It was done professionally and scientifically. So let me give it to John for a couple of minutes, and then I'll gladly answer any questions you may well have.
Thank you, Pat. I want to thank Pat and the PBA board for allowing us to do this important and historic study. It's really a first-time study, and they didn't know what they were going to get, but just for the members of the media here, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because there's a lot of data here, but you have a PowerPoint in front of you with like 60 pages. The entire PowerPoint, the wording of the questions, the entire questionnaire, the entire crosstabs are going to be posted on the PBA website after this press conference. So they're fully transparent. You can see the results. It was professionally done, and Pat and the board have decided that they're not keeping anything from you. If you look at slide 3 in this, you'll see that the survey was conducted between February 9th and February 26th. We did promise the members of the PBA privacy and confidentiality when they completed this. Nothing was done to bias their opinion going in. And you had a response of 6,004 respondents from 12,548 emails that were solicited. That is huge. We do a lot of member participation studies, et cetera. We don't get this kind of response rate. This was an extremely high participation rate. You have 48% of those with emails. And even the PBA allowed people who didn't have emails or previously have emails with them, allowed them, facilitated them to take the survey to increase participation as well. So for their membership, to have 1 in 4 members register their opinions, this is huge. If you go on slide 4 and you look at for those following along on the PowerPoint, the overwhelming majority of respondents, we're near unanimity. Not only is this overwhelming in participation, the opinions are almost unanimous. And there's very little difference regardless of how long they've been on the force, their gender, where they work, the type of duties. The officers here are almost unanimous in their numbers. And it's rare when pollsters have to deliver numbers where constantly you're in the 80s, 90%. You just don't see numbers like that, especially when you've got 6,004 participants. 95% on slide 4, you can see 95% of the respondents said New York City's headed on the wrong track. 87% said New York City's become less safe in the past 2 years. The majority, 55% of the majority of police officers said much less safe. I mean, these are the police officers that guard your streets. In comparison to years past, 95% of PBA members say they personally feel less safe, while on duty as a police officer. 58% say much less safe. 96% say the relationship between the NYPD and the public has worsened in the past few years. 70% said greatly worsened. And when you're looking ahead, you could just say, let's go to slide, I'm going to quickly go through these, slide 5 if you want to look at it. 95% say the city's on the wrong track. By the way, after that page, you'll have these crosstabs for the different segments. There's virtually no difference. When you look at slide 7, compared to 2 years ago, you can see 87% saying less safe, 55 a lot less safe. What's stunning when you consider what Pat was talking about morale, just to say on slide 9, in past years, while on duty as a police officer, do you feel less safe? 95% say they feel less safe. 58% much less safe. And slide 11, past few years, would you say the relationship between the public and the NYPD has worsened? 96%, 70% greatly worsened. When we asked them verbatim, this is off the top of their head on slide 13, in your opinion, why has the NYPD's relationship with the public worsened? These are their responses that were categorized off the top of their head. 17% said the mayor and the city council. 16% said no support and respect. 12% said the media's been negative. 5% were saying anti-rhetoric protests, quota-driven over-policing 5%, and poor public perception 4%. Go to slide 14. You will see that summarizing their opinions about the mayor, 92% of the respondents say support for the police has decreased during the de Blasio administration when compared to past administrations. 83% say it's decreased a lot. 96% are unfavorable to the mayor. When representing the best interests of New York City police officers, 95% give the mayor a poor job rating. Not just fair, certainly not excellent or good, but poor. When they asked what they liked most about the mayor, 62% cited nothing, 8% said his term is up, and 3% said he's a one-term mayor. This is off the top. These are verbatims off the top of the officers' heads. You'll see 96% disapprove of de Blasio's policing and public safety policies. 97% said de Blasio has created an environment where criminals feel emboldened, and 95% say de Blasio has created an environment in New York City that is combative towards police. The city council and the city council president don't do much better. You can see there that slide 15, you can see the actual number where it says 92% say support for the police has decreased during this administration, 83% say a lot. And these are stunning numbers. They are big numbers. These are well outside the margin of error of any survey. Jumping ahead to slide 19, where I already mentioned, we're representing the best interests of New York City police officers. Only 1% gave the mayor a positive rating, 98% negative, 95% poor. And again, slide 21, I mentioned the verbatims. What do you like least about the mayor? On slide 22, he's anti-police. 16% said everything. 8% said the attitude, they disrespect the police, dislike, insult the police, 4%. That he's still in office, 4%. And you can see the other leading responses there. Slide 23, do you approve or disapprove of Mayor de Blasio's policing and public safety policies? 96% disapprove, 85% strongly disapprove. Again, we had no idea the numbers were going to be this one-sided. We had no idea what would come back, and this is what's come back. You look at slide 25. Do you agree or disagree with the following statements? Again, these are kind of numbers that stun pollsters when you see them, that they're this unanimous. Reacting to the statement, Mayor de Blasio has created an environment in New York City where criminals feel emboldened to carry guns and use them against civilians and police. 97% of all officers agreed with that, only 3% disagreed. The de Blasio administration has created an environment in New York City and among its residents that is combative towards the police in New York City. 95% of all our officers agreed with that, only 5% disagreed. Jumping ahead to, and again, the numbers on the city council president and city council don't improve much better. On slide 30, you'll see there regarding Commissioner Bratton. He actually has a 2-to-1 favorable to unfavorable rating, where 64% are favorable towards the commissioner, and you also have 66% give an overall job approval rating. But then when representing the best interests in New York City police office, he's 50% positive, 49% negative, and it's mainly in the middle range of say good or fair. 37% say good, 37% say only fair. You can see on slide 31, his favorable unfavorable is 2-to-1 positive, 64-30. So it's not entirely negative. I mean, again, the commissioner gets fairly good numbers here with the police officers, and his job approval is 66-32. And when I was mentioning representing the interests of the police officers, you could go to slide 35 and you'll see there it's mainly in the middle cluster of 37% good, 37% only fair. Slide, for those following along again, on slide 37, when you're looking at job satisfaction, the lack of support as well as the salary and personal safety concerns are leading to the low morale. So this is the source of it. When we asked them to cite when we asked them what could be done to improve the lives and working conditions, the number one verbatim was 35% said pay raise. 89% told us they would leave the NYPD for another law enforcement agency with better pay in the New York City area. 85% would leave the New York City area if offered better pay. Also on the bottom of that page, you'll see compared to past years, 86% of the respondents are less likely to recommend a career with the New York City Police Department to their own children or relatives. And compared to years past, this is definitely a departure. Slide 38, you can see the verbatim responses. Slide 40, you'll see the actual number. The 89% said they would leave if they were offered a better salary someplace else in the New York City area. 68% saying definitely they would leave. Only 9% said no. Outside the New York City area, 85% said that if they were offered another law enforcement agency, as Pat said, as far as their pay goes, it's not proportional, not commensurate. Better salary, they would leave to go elsewhere outside the New York City area. 85%, 59% definitely. Only 14% of all these officers said no. Looking at, I'm going to jump ahead to the slide 49. More or less likely to recommend a career with the New York City Police Department to your own children or relatives. 86% less likely, 60% much less likely. And then, slide 51, other key findings. The officers are overwhelmingly reluctant to take action for fear of lawsuits and complaints. Arrest subjects are more likely to resist arrest. The NYPD is understaffed. Signs of disorder in the city are growing. The supervisors impose quotas, and the 1% pay raise they see is extremely unreasonable. On slide 52, you've got a summary of these statements with the exact wording. Do they and again, the numbers are overwhelming. These are huge numbers. When you give, and police officers are opinionated. They have opinions and they disagree with each other. I know, I'm the grandson of 2 New York City detectives, but I will tell you, I'm used to their opinions. But when you say agree or disagree, police officers are reluctant to take action for fear of lawsuits or public or complaints by the public. 97-3, they agree with that. Arrest subjects are now more likely to actively resist arrest. 96-5, they agree with that statement. The NYPD is structurally understaffed and staffing should be significantly increased. 93-7, they agree with that. Graffiti, public urination, panhandlers, and other signs of disorder are growing more prevalent. 91%-9, they agree with that. And new procedures and requirements related to the use of stop, question, and frisk limit police officers' ability to safely and effectively make stops when necessary. 81-19, they agree on that. And you can see if you go to the next page on the very bottom, it says 1% pay. The 1% pay raises awarded by arbitrator Howard Edelman were just and reasonable. 1% agree, 99 disagree. And you see, 62. By the way, we took their answers. It's like you can answer whatever way you want. But if you look on slide 54, you'll also see there's a rating scale of a 0 to 10, and we said where 0 is the lowest and the worst, and 10 is the best. On a scale of 0 to 10, would you rate each of the following? And just to mention, the level of morale among New York City police officers, on the average scale, it received a 2.49. By the way, of the things we listed here, when you're around a 5, the mediocre ratings were the best. But when you slip to 55, this is sufficiency of the equipment provided to police officers on patrol to respond to active shooter-style terrorist attacks, 2.17. The sufficiency of training provided to police officers on patrol to respond to an active shooter-style terrorist attack, 2.09. The conditions of the precincts and facilities, 1.58. The salary of the New York City police officers that they receive, 1.36. So with this, when you're looking for what the low morale is about, they feel less safe. They don't feel like basically that this administration is really making things better. The public is certainly, the relationship with the public has deteriorated, and certainly they're not happy with the salaries and you know, the way they're being compensated and rewarded. So, but thank you for letting us do this important study. In the meantime, again, it'll all be posted on their website, top to bottom, the wording of the questions, the order of the questions. You can see it was an unbiased scientific study, and it was the results were just tremendous participation for the members and the job that the PBA has done. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And as you see, and the documents that we've given you and the release, as John said, on our website and to the public and to our members, is very transparent. This is the voice of New York City police officers, the rank and file police officer you see each and every day. This should not be dismissed. It was disturbing, actually, that the mayor, the first response was, I find it questionable, this survey. without seeing it, without seeing the results, without seeing if we did it with a methodology that's accepted by professionals in this business, and we did. So what we're hoping is the morale of New York City police officers is at rock bottom. This is an opportunity to say, okay, what can we do, and start that dialogue to fix it as we move forward. It's not right to have New York City police officers feeling that they're personally in danger on the streets of the city of New York. If they feel like they're in danger, the public feels like they're in danger. Questions? Yes, sir.
Pat, maybe this is McLaughlin can answer
Sure.
this a little better. Was this survey considered done in the blind? And if you had the email addresses, how did you remove the risk that respondents would feel, you have my email, you might know who I am? How do you get around that?
Well, it's the PBA has the emails. So they extended the invitation through their list, and plus everybody's guaranteed confidentiality, privacy. And what we also do is there's a code that we're able to know that when a person does this, they can only do it once. And by the way, you know, there was a similar management study that the mayor referred to yesterday and the commissioner referred to, and it was the same methodology that they conducted their study. And theirs was done, the difference is, theirs was certainly done probably, from what I gather, theirs was done through work while people were on the job as part of their job, and you'll get a higher participation rate. This was done by PBA members voluntarily on their own time, and they are absolutely guaranteed confidentiality, and it's the PBA's list, they control it, and everybody had a chance to fill it out at least once.
So you shot out questions through the emails which you had, but you didn't have the name of the participant?
No. So what happened is they have a record of who they are via their email, and what happens then is when they complete their survey, it's closed out. So, and it's all confidential at that point. It goes into the database. All right.
And we would be, I'm sorry.
And again, it's the same methodology, the same kind of study, same professional methodology that the police department did when their own management study. It appears that they did a very thorough, 2 years ago, a very thorough management study where they may have some, you know, I don't think they've released the whole thing. I haven't, you know, seen anything like what the PBA is putting out. But if they want to say they have different results, they should put it out. But it's 2 years past, so maybe some things have gotten worse. So.
And the confidentiality of our members is extremely important to each and every one of us, the women and men that represents the women and men of the NYPD. We would never break that bond. We take seriously the anonymity of this survey. We take seriously our mailing list. It's under lock and key and is not sold or used for any other reason except to communicate with our members. So, quite frankly, we didn't need to or want to know what a particular police officer answered. We just wanted them to participate. I think over here. Yes, sir.
John, was there any attempt to follow up with any of the officers who said things like, I feel less safe, I feel like people are more likely to resist? Because usually there's some kind of empirical data that you could use to sort of counteract an impression that may be inaccurate.
No, we didn't. It was like once they completed this, it was because it was a private survey and confidentiality. Once they completed it, that was it.
And that would compromise us, the confidentiality aspect. If we knew how they answered, then no one would answer, and we wouldn't want that to happen. Yes, sir.
Two quick questions. One was, because you just sent them out through the emails, was there any attempt to reach the ones you didn't have emails for?
Before we did this, we communicated with our members through our delegate body, through the executive board members, the women and men that stand before you. We went out and did roll calls where we explain how important this is that we get participation. So we spread the word first. We guarantee them the confidentiality, going back to your question, to make sure that they feel comfortable responding. Again, do it at home with your family, be comfortable, and so we spread the word ahead of time. Then we kept it open an ample amount of time so everyone can participate, and they have.
And in regards to these responses, like what do you like least about Mayor de Blasio, were those open-ended questions that they could write in whatever they want?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's open.
Yes, ma'am.
The commissioner spoke about this briefly yesterday. He said that in some way the department is already responding with better training, with equipment and tools. Do you agree with that assessment?
Every time we talk about the morale of the police officers, and the members speak about how they feel, the response and from the list of answers and the public relations is, well, we gave them phones, and we gave them bullet-resistant vests, and we gave them shiny new cars. Now, quite frankly, to give us a bullet-resistant vest is a moral obligation so that we can be safe and go home at the end of the day. It doesn't affect our morale. You're supposed to be giving that to us. giving us iPhones and iPads helps us do the job to follow your mission and your priorities from City Hall and headquarters. How you affect the morale of New York City police officers, just like any other working woman and man in the city, is you pay them as professionals, you treat them as professionals, you defend them as professionals, especially in the atmosphere in which we work, where it's getting more and more dangerous. And because of that atmosphere, each interaction, not all obviously, but many interactions turn confrontational. Well, the police officer has to deal with that. That affects their morale. So treat us like professionals, defend us as professionals, pay us as professionals, and then morale will go up. The formula is simple. It's a matter if they want to address that formula, respond to that, and fix the problem once and for all, and quite frankly, they should and need to. We'll see where it goes from here. Yes, ma'am.
Pat, the NYPD insists that it's not a scientific survey. I know you addressed this a little bit, but what do you say to that? They say there's no random sampling.
Well, we can't, the commissioner and City Hall cannot stand up and say, well, we know these already because we did our survey, so we know that. It's not a surprise. By the way, we use the same methodology and formulas that they used as well. So you can't say, well, that's nonsense, and then say, well, we know that already because we did the same thing. It validates what we're talking about here. We're very serious and professional how we went about this. We did not want to be dismissed as, well, that's Lynch. He's the president of a union. He's supposed to say that. Well, we removed ourselves. Let's hear what the member says. I'm just an advocate for them. I'm just a voice for them. But the voice I use is what they've said and asked for. Yes, sir.
Any effort or any sort of sense of maybe doing these on a more regular basis to start to be able to track this?
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, the professionals will say, obviously. Yes, of course. And by the way, he says he's terrific. But by the way, we are looking at that now. It's in the infancy of us doing this, but we've seen that the response was huge. The members felt safe in responding. And again, as the president of the union, you're speaking to a member out on the street. You're hoping that they're not just telling you what you want to hear. So we removed our faces from it and said, just do it with your family in your own home. And we got honest answers. It turns out that they are telling us how they feel in the business. They trust the organization, and we're appreciative of that. But this made sure that do it, answer it, and you'll be safe. And we want to really know, because what we want to do is make sure we're speaking in their voice. And that's what we found out we are doing that. We'll continue to do that. So we're in the infancy of it, but we'll obviously explore that and do it on the future on different topics, smaller topics, and the like.
And also, as you went through this, you also remarked that it wasn't just the training, but it was also facilities. Obviously, pay has been a huge issue for the members. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like this command staff and this commissioner is moving fast enough to address all of these issues?
Look, some of them they're addressing. The facilities, they're going around, they're starting to do that. But what we want to see is that continues on into the future, where it's a permanent plan. As the station houses get older, they get cleaned, they get rehabbed, because we have some ancient station houses. But also, after we rehab them, to circle back around and clean them on a regular basis. So time will tell if they'll continue that process. We're hopeful that they will. But we also need not just to throw gadgets at them and not continually do things that help us carry out their mission and priorities, but also that we can carry out the mission and priorities of our own home. Look, 60% of our members live in the confines of New York City. We serve the neighborhoods in which we live. What we want to be able to do is go out and take care of our families, feed our families, educate our families in the city that we serve. In order to do that, you have to pay us as professionals. It's simple what we're asking. It can be resolved. It just, do you take this mandate that the members give us and follow up on it from City Hall? Time will tell. We're hopeful that it will. Yes, sir.
Pat, did the answer on body cameras surprise you? Yes, no, why not?
Yeah, well, one of the things in that question, it was geared towards CCRB. Now, it's in such disarray at CCRB for our members that they do not believe in the system, they do not believe it's fairly done, that they'll grasp on anything to say, we need any kind of help. Because what's happening is they're not getting rid of those false accusations. When a police officer goes and gets investigated and gets interviewed, or what we call GO15, and we raise our hand and swear we're telling the truth, the person that made that complaint is under no restriction. They can lie, and many do. So it's turned into a system where we arrest folks. They obviously are not comfortable getting arrested. I know what I can do. I can get back at this police officer. I'll make a false accusation. Nothing happens to me as the false accuser. So New York City police officers are looking at anything to go in there and say, look, I went out and did my job. It's a difficult job. It's a dangerous job. Just treat me with fairness. So it's so unfair that they look at something like that, which we have a number of questions about how it gets used, privacy issues as well. But they're looking for anything to say, we want fairness in the system. Yes, ma'am.
Well, to follow up though, if you don't mind, Hazel, did that answer surprise you? Did that surprise you?
No, because we've heard that out with our members as well. But there's also a greater issue in when you use it, the privacy of our members, the privacy of the crime victim. It's not as simple as clipping a camera onto someone's shoulder. But what also disturbs New York City police officers and the atmosphere in which we work and the call for cameras in such a rush when there's not really information to support it as well, is that City Hall and others are starting from the position that New York City police officers are always wrong. Well, that's not the case. We're not always wrong. Sometimes mistakes. But we go out and do a job by the thousands each and every day, and the public leaves satisfied. But nonetheless, we constantly hear the drumbeat of they're wrong, they need more oversight. We need district attorneys, we need the federal government, we need city council, we need the IG, the AG, the whole alphabet. And now we need cameras on top of them to watch them being watched. It's actually insulting as professional police officers to say, well, you're always wrong, so we need to keep an eye on you. Yes, ma'am.
You kind of spoke to this a little bit earlier.
Sure.
But Mayor de Blasio also said yesterday that all the PBA does is complain, and they don't come up with solid solutions for the betterment of everyone.
That's the shoot from the hip reaction when you get bad news. At first they attacked and said it's suspect without knowing how we did it, why we did it, and what the responses were. So he's just fluffing it off. Look, New York City police officers, the rank and file police officers are used to City Hall dismissing our concerns. But nonetheless, you should take a serious look at this and say why. Why are we coming up with those complaints? First off, I've worked in a number of different administrations, and we've been at loggerheads at times, and we've been at agreements at times. We're reasonable folks. When you're having a real dialogue and real discussion, not just having a meeting and then you do what you like. When you have a real discussion with real solutions, we can come to those meetings, we can be responsive, we won't just be complaining, we'll be solving problems. That's just an easy shoot from the hip response. Well, they're always complaining. When we speak, it's what the members are feeling. Again, why we did it this way? We did it this way to say, well, it's not just a union leader on a soapbox on the steps of City Hall. It's our members speaking. It's our members saying, we feel unsafe, we feel underappreciated, we're underpaid. Now let's have that dialogue. The most thing I'd like to do, and I've done this, I've stood on the steps of City Hall and protested, and I've stood behind the podium at City Hall saying we've come to a resolve. This administration needs to understand that, and we need to come to a resolve. Over here, and I'll come back.
How problematic is it that so many officers look at the mayor who's in charge of the city workforce and say, I disagree with you? What kind of practical impact do you think that has?
You know, we're a paramilitary organization. You know, like a lot of folks say, well, you know, the members are getting along with the mayor. That's their party line. And they said, well, lynches, I saw them at a funeral and they were talking to each other. Look, we're professionals. And we pride ourselves on being professional. And I pride myself on being respectful to folks, even those we disagree with. It doesn't mean we're agreeing and coming to a resolve. We should be respectful, and we are, our members are, but we need to take that respect and turn it into substance, where we're not just band-aiding, approaching, and dismissing. What's wrong is to dismiss the concerns of the members. This is not about personality, it's not about politics, this is about hard facts from our members that show there's a problem. Whether we solve it or not is a different story. Yes, sir?
You had a response rate of about 50%, if I'm doing the math right, and you were sort of very surprised by the way the responses came in one direction for the most part. Had you done a random sample of those email respondents, initially going, just random sample that universe, you think you would have had any different kind of response rate, or would it?
I think you can answer that, but no, I don't think so.
No, because you got, and again, take umbrage at the point that it's not scientific. I mean, this was, they said that sight unseen. This was very scientific, and ironically, it's the same methodology that they did a study with, that I heard about similarly 2 years ago. Exact same way. And when you're dealing, I mean, today there's elections going on in the United States, and people are prognosticating over a few hundred people in a poll representing millions. You have 6,000 members of the NYP, the PBA, that are responding to a survey. Because I saw one of the criticisms yesterday, it should have had more women officers. maybe a little more, but if you weighted the difference, there was no difference. It was like 95% versus 94, men to women. There was still, the subcell for women was 599. That's a huge subcell. A lot of times you all are reporting on surveys citywide, representing all the millions of people in New York City, where you have 600 people. This is 6,000 people. So when you look at it and you say, this is scientific, it's scientific so much so that the same methodology the PBA used is the same one Commissioner Bratton used 2 years ago to set up a benchmark study that he did with another firm. So that's fine. The difference is the questions that the PBA asked are things that the city would not ask. And what they felt that their members, they had no idea how these results were going to come back. We had no idea. I mean, you just asked about body cameras. I thought that answer spoke to the honesty and character of the New York City police officers, that they are an honest, I mean, by and large, they're very good people, honest character, and that hit with a lot of these other things. But the real surprise is when you have New York City police officers saying they personally feel less safe, and it's almost unanimous, that's a scary thought in this city. And when you think about how unhappy they are with their salary, how unhappy they are with some of the working conditions, how unhappy they are with the relationship with the public, those are not good signs at all. And I think the PBA did a service that they did this study, that they could share it with the policymakers in the city, and they could make differences and make changes. So,
and we've also gone beyond the demographics of who we are, the gender that we are, and we also went down to the different boroughs we work. As you all know, we're broken down to different boroughs here in the city, and within the police department, we're broken down even further. We got responses from all those boroughs, whether it's Brooklyn North or the Bronx or Queens North or South. So it was broken down even further. We really got a response from our members across all demographics, even within our own department. Yes, sir.
Hey, so 96% of cops say the relationship between the NYPD and the public has worsened over the past couple of years, which would be a direct contradiction, as I read it, of Mayor de Blasio's constant refrain that, ever since the dial back and stop and frisk, cops in the communities are getting along much better. Do you want to address that?
It goes beyond just the mayor's office, quite frankly. It goes on and having our elected officials defending and supporting New York City police officers. If you see, it's been fallen only on the shoulders of the New York City PBA to defend New York City police officers. Quite frankly, we work for City Hall, we work for the City Council, we work for other elected officials. They too should be supporting us, because folks in the city are busy. They're busy getting on the subway, going to work, taking care of their families, going home at the end of the day, walking up their stoop and going into their apartment. They don't have time to think too much, so it's how it's presented as well. If you see the city leaders dislike or don't support police officers or just give lip service, well, they're not going to spend much time. But if you take the time where it's not just the voice of the PBA and the members saying, well, let's look at how and why New York City police officers do our job, it would make it a lot easier, and you might see out in the street it's much better. We've seen it in times of crisis, where folks supported police officers because they've seen exactly what police officers do. We see crime victims on a regular basis that would call the police, they get service, the compassion in which our members show to women and men of the city is they leave and say, well, we have a different impression of the police officer. Because what she did is she came here, she supported me. What he did is he came here and he helped me. And then they have a different approach. Well, we need our city leaders and our other elected officials, not just City Hall, to say the same. Not come from that mantra of the police officer's wrong, so we got to keep an eye on them. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Bratton has said that they've done their own surveys,
Yes.
I think starting in 2014, focus group, whatever. I'm not sure, I don't think we've seen them. Have you seen them? Have they shared any of that with you? Or?
We didn't get that data. That's why we're releasing this data to you today, to the public as well, and to our members as we go along this process. We want them to look at it and say, well, they asked those questions that I'm thinking, and it responded correctly. The department did not release all that information. We have released it. But also to criticize and say, well, we did the same thing, used the same methodology, and we knew this already. He's leaving a part out. That was 2 years ago, and what we found in this survey, It's gotten worse. That needs to be addressed. Yes, sir.
Regarding, you said how you guys, that the union stepped back from this and let the members do it.
Yes.
So did you take the survey?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And the delegates took the survey.
I'm 4,999.
No, just curious.
Yes, no, absolutely. I'm a New York City police officer. I was fortunate enough to be assigned to the 90th precinct of Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Honored to be elected by our members and assigned here. But any day I could be back on patrol. So my opinions are like any other police officer's opinion, and I take it seriously. We want our members to take it seriously. As the women and men that stand up here, we need to take it seriously as well. Again, it goes back to that message from our elected officials. The message from here is we're taking it seriously. We're taking the time to sit at my kitchen table, quite frankly, and do it. I'm asking my comrades to do it. I'm asking our families that are police officers to do it as well. So yes, I did.
I have an off-topic real quick, if it's all right. Just today, Bratton announced that they're going to be policing the homeless shelters. I'm
Yes,
just
sir.
wondering if you guys were looped in on that and what your response is.
We weren't looped in on it, but what this paints and shows, and we've seen it for a number of years. I have 32 years as a New York City police officer. What we find is when there's a problem, when another agency may well fail at solving that problem, the response is always, well, let the NYPD handle it. Why? We're good at what we do. We're professional at what we do, and all the issues that face, whether it's an issue on a street corner, it's in a shelter, it's some other agency, mental health or otherwise, it lands on the shoulders of New York City police officers to do that. So let's dig deeper. Why do they say that? Because they know we'll accomplish that mission. We're held accountable for accomplishing that mission. We have the whole world watching us. So it goes to that attitude. When there's a problem, let's call a cop. Well, City Hall and headquarters does that too. There's a problem. Let's call the cops. But what we're saying then is, after we go in and solve the problem, let's not point fingers and saying it's wrong. You went to us for a reason. We pride ourselves on how we do our job. We do it evenly, and we do it professionally. New York City police officers are no different than any of you or any other business in the city. You want to be respected as a professional for the job you do. Well, our members do that. City Hall recognizes that when it's a problem. But when it's time to take care of the moral obligation to pay us and respect us and treat us and support us, it's easy just to walk the other direction. But that speaks to that issue.
Do you predict that morale will go even worse, having to deal in homeless shelters where there's concerns about violence and concerns about...
Not particularly because of that. It is a situation that's difficult, but we deal with difficult situations. We work in environments where one day we're assigned to we're on the road, as we say, in our transit system. The next day we may be in a homeless shelter. The next day we may be policing a parade or a demonstration. So we flow with the punches. We're professional. And quite frankly, we want people to ask us for help. That's what we pride ourselves in doing. But what we ask is the respect in return to say, wow, you all did a nice job. You did a professional job. We're going to treat you as professionals. That's where the disconnect is.
Going a little
Yes,
deeper
ma'am.
into that, they specifically talked about NYPD officers training DHS security officers.
Yeah.
I want to get your response
Sure.
on that point.
As a police officer on any given day, you're in a sector car, as we call it in our neighborhoods. You respond to any type of calls. You can respond to an emotionally disturbed person. You can respond to an aided case. We'll respond to a fire, a robbery, or a terrorist attack. So we have a broad background and profession and training in what we do. So we're happy to go out and train other folks to do that, because quite frankly, when there's an issue or a disturbance in one of our homeless shelters and the security officers better can't handle it, they dial 911 and the police officers respond. So we're in those environments already. So to help educate those that are assigned there on a regular basis is fine. But again, it should go back to, well, you think we're professional here, but you don't treat us as professional. There's a problem in another agency, so let's respond back in and have the cops handle it. Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Pat, the greatest source of discontent expressed by your members had to do with salary and with the pay raises they got
Sure.
under the arbitration award.
Sure.
You have been talking with the city since late last year. Do you get any sense at this point that you're going to be able to make enough progress to possibly negotiate a contract, or does it look like you're headed straight back?
I'm an eternal optimist. I stay at that table until we get it resolved. Look, we had it in the Bloomberg administration where we were literally following him and demonstrating morning, noon, and night. But we got to a point where we sat at the table and negotiated a contract that respected our members. We're willing to do that again. What we find is an attitude which is insulting from City Hall. And it goes like this. Police officers are going to go out and do their job 100% all the time. Why pay them? And that's insulting, because we're professionals, we're doing our job, we're doing it well, we're serving our communities, but then when it's time to say, well, let's respect them and pay them like professionals, they choose not to do that. It should never be pattern fits all. Pattern bargaining is lazy bargaining. It does not work. It may work for another agency, and I respect those unions that do it, but it doesn't work to solve the problems here in the NYPD, and that's why you go to the table, to solve problems for both sides. Yes, sir.
Why is it that you think the mayor doesn't understand or respond to your complaints? There's obviously clear communication on your end, a desire for a better contract. This is not the first time you've raised these kind of issues, although it's the first time with a poll. What is it that you think he doesn't, and seriously, is it politics? Is he playing to a certain part of New York City? Is it that that you guys just don't get along?
No, quite frankly, I don't know the answer. It's a better question for City Hall, quite honestly. I don't know. And what the reason is, it doesn't make any difference. Look, again, what we're doing here is to say it's not just the union yelling. It's the members speaking. They did it professionally. They did it scientifically. They did it in an outside agency or corporation or company. In doing it, they removed themselves for it, so they should take it seriously. Look, what we're not trying to do is say, hey, look what he did today. I don't want to do that. What I want to do is say, look at the resolve we came to, then our members can go out and feel safe. The public feels safe, we get our job, and all our members, the women and men that go out on patrol, can go out and get the thanks of the public. That's what we're trying to do. So we think this was a different way to do it, a professional way to do it, and I think it shouldn't be dismissed, quite frankly. Any other questions? Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you taking the time to come here and cover this as well. Before you leave, the restrooms are right out here. Feel free to take your time before you leave. Thank you, everyone.